Meet David. He is 64 years old. He has worked for 40 years. He did everything right, showed up every day, paid his taxes, raised his kids. And last year, he quietly told his daughter that he does not think he can afford to retire. David is not unusual. David is America. Right now, as you watch this, roughly half of all American adults over the age of 55 have less than $50,000 saved for retirement. Not $50,000 a year, $50,000 total. That is less than 1 year of average American household expenses for the rest of their lives. And the response from the system that was supposed to protect them? Essentially, silence. Here is what makes this crisis different from most financial stories. It did not happen because of a crash. There was no single villain, no moment of collapse you could point to on a chart. This one was built slowly, quietly, over decades, and by the time most people noticed, it was already too late to fix easily. To understand how we got here, you need to go back about 50 years. In the 1970s, most American workers who stayed with a company long enough were covered by something called a defined benefit pension. The name says exactly what it is. Your employer defined the benefit. You worked your years, you retired, and every single month until you died, a check showed up. Predictable, guaranteed, simple. At its peak, roughly 88% of private sector workers had access to one of these plans. Then something changed. In 1978, almost by accident, a section of the tax code was quietly amended. It was called Section 401k. It was originally designed as a minor tax shelter for corporate executives. Nobody intended it to become the primary retirement system for an entire country. But corporations noticed something. A pension costs money every single year, whether the market is up or down. A 401k shifts that responsibility to the employee. You contribute, you manage it, you absorb the risk, and the company matches a little sometimes when it feels like it. Over the next 2 decades, pensions quietly disappeared. By 2020, only about 15% of private sector workers had access to a traditional pension. The rest got a 401k and a pamphlet. America had just run the largest unannounced transfer of financial risk in its history, from corporations and governments onto individual workers. Most people did not even realize it had happened. Now here is where the math starts to get uncomfortable. The 401k system works beautifully under one set of conditions. You start young, you contribute consistently, your employer matches generously, the market performs well over decades, you never touch it early, and you retire at exactly the right moment in the market cycle. Remove any one of those conditions and the system starts to crack. Remove several of them and you get what we have today. The average 401k balance for Americans between the ages of 55 and 64 is around $185,000. That sounds like a reasonable number until you do the math. Financial planners generally use what is called the 4% rule. You withdraw 4% of your savings per year to make it last through retirement. 4% of $185,000 is $7,400 a year. That's about $616 a month to live on in America in 2026. The average one-bedroom apartment in a mid-sized American city costs over $1,200 a month, before utilities, before food, before medication. So the retirement math for the average American doesn't just come up short, it doesn't come close. But wait, you might say, what about Social Security? Good question. Let's talk about Social Security. The average Social Security benefit in 2026 is roughly $1,900 a month. Add that to our $616 from savings, and you get around $2,500 a month, before taxes, before Medicare premiums get deducted directly from that check. That's the financial reality for a significant portion of American retirees, not the bottom of the income scale, the average. And here's the part that rarely makes headlines. Social Security was never designed to be a full retirement income. It was designed in 1935 to supplement other savings. The assumption was always that people would have pensions, personal savings, and Social Security working together as a three-legged stool. One leg is almost entirely gone, one leg is badly weakened, and the third leg, Social Security itself, is under pressure. The Social Security Trust Fund, the reserve that helps pay current benefits, is currently projected to face a shortfall by the early 2030s. If Congress does nothing, and Congress has a long and impressive history of doing nothing until the last possible moment, benefits could be automatically cut by around 21%. A 21% cut to the check that millions of Americans are already barely surviving on. Here's a detail that the retirement industry doesn't advertise loudly. Most of the money in 401k accounts in America is concentrated among a very small number of people. The top 10% of earners hold over 80% of all retirement account assets. The bottom half of the workforce, roughly 80 million workers, have effectively nothing saved. And this is not entirely because those workers were irresponsible or didn't care. Roughly 57 million American workers have no access to any workplace retirement plan at all. No 401k, no pension, nothing through their employer. They're gig workers, part-time employees, small business employees, and contract workers in a system that was built for a workforce that largely no longer exists. The retirement system was designed for someone who spent 30 years at one company, earned a steady salary with benefits, and retired with a gold watch. That person is increasingly rare. The system never caught up. Now, zoom out for a moment. What happens to an economy when tens of millions of people hit their 60s and 70s with no meaningful savings? A few things, and none of them are good. They keep working, which sounds fine until you realize that older workers remaining in the workforce longer directly slows wage growth and mobility for younger workers trying to move up. The economy doesn't just absorb this cleanly. They depend heavily on government support, Medicaid, housing assistance, food programs. The fiscal cost of an unprepared retirement generation lands on taxpayers, including the younger workers who are already struggling with their own student loans, housing costs, and economic instability. And they stop spending. Retired Americans with limited income pull back from consumption. That matters in an economy where 70% of GDP is consumer spending. A generation that can't afford to spend does quiet but real damage to economic growth. There's also a healthcare dimension that rarely gets discussed in the same breath as retirement savings. The average American couple retiring today is estimated to need over $300,000 just for healthcare costs in retirement. That number is separate from housing, food, and everything else, and it's going up every year. The retirement crisis and the healthcare affordability crisis are not two separate problems. They're the same problem wearing different clothes. Here's the quiet irony sitting underneath all of this. The financial services industry, the mutual funds, the brokerage firms, the retirement account administrators, they make money whether your 401k goes up or down. Every year, regardless of market performance, fees come out of your account. The average American pays somewhere between 0.5 and 1.5% of their account balance annually in fees. That sounds small. Over 30 years, it can quietly consume somewhere between 25 and 35% of your total potential retirement wealth. The system that replaced the pension was not just riskier for workers, it was also significantly more profitable for financial institutions. That particular coincidence has never received the attention it deserves. So here's where we land. A system designed for a workforce that no longer exists, math that doesn't work for the average person, a backup program facing its own funding crisis, and tens of millions of people who worked hard and played by the rules, quietly realizing in their late 50s and 60s that the finish line they were running towards has moved. Governments know this, economists know this, the financial industry definitely knows this, and the conversation keeps getting postponed.
The question that doesn't have a clean answer is this: when the largest generation of underprepared retirees in American history fully arrives, and they are arriving right now, what does a society actually do? Do you cut benefits for people who have nothing left to cut? Do you raise taxes on workers who are already stretched? Do you tell people in their 60s to simply keep working in a labor market that often doesn't want them? David is still figuring that out. So is everyone else.